Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Legacy Premier League pregame show, which we might or might not have used 45 minutes to set up because Skype and Hangouts are crap. With us tonight, we got Phil Gallagher of Pregame University. We have everyday eternal co-host Bob Huang and Anuraag Das, who's involved in a lot of awesome things, I would believe, as well as like running the Legacy Premier League. So, hi guys. We decided to come together tonight because there's a very special thing. Like, I think Bob called it the end of Legacy as we know it. So, there's a new card, it was spawned, it's called Assassin's Trophy, and if you live under the moon or under a rock or somewhere, what the card does is, it's black and green, instant, destroy target permanent your opponent controls, so it's even like better against misdirection. Your opponent gets to search the library for a basic land and put it into play untapped, then shuffles the library. Bob, what made you like think that this is the end of Legacy as we know it?
So I'll be honest, when I first saw the card, I thought it was like a really powerful card. And then someone made the comment that like, hey, you can call this card Ass Trophy for short. So that's really kind of what turned me on to the card. I was like, that's a great name, Ass Trophy. And then I called it the end of Legacy because, you know, it's kind of the rear end. So that's kind of where I started from. And like after thinking about the card more, like the less and less I am impressed with it. So I think it is going to see play for sure, but I don't even necessarily believe that it's better than Abrupt Decay in
Oh, you're
most
not?
situations. So yeah, I actually don't think it's going to be as good as Abrupt Decay, and Abrupt Decay sees almost no play right now. So actually, I'm pretty down on the card. So maybe you should ask the other people what they think first, and then I'll go in a little deeper into my thoughts.
Yeah, so guys, like Anuraag, Phil, how do you feel about the card? Like, do you have any like great opinions about that? Because I saw Anuraag post about it on, I think, Twitter, and he said that I almost called it ass trophy. I just can't get
No, dude,
myself to
that's
call
what
it
we're
anything
calling it.
else.
We're calling it Astro.
You said that this card will only make miracles better. So what made you think that?
Yeah, so that was my hot take. So let's just talk about the card in a vacuum first and like understand why it's good and like what it brings to the table, right? So first of all, just like Abrupt Decay, it's an instant. It's black green. Big thing that it's just like not blue. So that means there are a lot of non-blue decks that can get access to this sort of instant speed answer to any permanent. I think the big thing that it brings to the table is an answer for bug decks to Jace the Mind Sculptor. Historically, bug decks have just struggled so hard beating a resolve Jace because they don't have access to things like Pyroblast or Lightning Bolt. And this is a really good option for just getting rid of the card entirely. I mean, I don't know how big the impact is going to be, but just having an answer in your repository, in addition to cards potentially like Leovold or whatever have you, is just big game. And I think there's a second subset of just giving bug decks another answer to the Thespian Stage Dark Depths combo. So like in response to the Thespian Stage activation on Dark Depths, or maybe it's even when Dark Depths like triggers when the counters go off, you just Assassin's Trophy the Dark Depths, and that'll destroy the land. So then Merit Lodge never comes into play. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's how it works. So those are the two big interactions. There's also synergy with Snapcaster, but that's not really unique when you compare this card to Abrupt Decay. I think this is going to be a very powerful. I think we're going to see a lot of it early on, moving in, to the next phase of whatever Legacy might be. But I do stand by what I said in that it will make Miracles probably a little bit stronger in the format. Just because Miracles decks typically have had just a really positive bug matchup. Jace the Mind Sculptor is still going to be good, and you have to understand that like this card I think directly competes with Abrupt Decay for slots. And if I'm playing blue-white, I definitely am a lot less afraid of seeing this counterable card rather than 2 mana can't be countered.
So it's kind of interesting. You mentioned that it's gonna be an answer to Chase, yet the deck that abuses Chase the most probably is still going to stand to benefit from it. So, Phil, how do you feel? Like, you're our resident Death and Taxes player. Is this a card that's gonna, like, in any way improve or, like, do anything to your matchup? Or do you think that's gonna be a rather bad card for Death and Taxes in the general metagame?
So historically, Death and Taxes just kind of like poops on any bug deck of any nature. They just like flop around and die to a Batterskull or a Mirran Crusader. And this fixes one of those two problems. Like one of the issues with a card like Abrupt Decay is that once you get past that 3 CMC range, it was just like, oh, unless I have this, one of awkward, expensive Maelstrom Pulse, I can't do anything about these cards. So against a bug deck, Batterskull just sat there all game and became this super huge end game problem. This is a two-mana answer to that is main deckable, that has huge implications elsewhere. And one of the things we haven't touched on yet, like, this just blows up lands. And if your opponent is not willing to put a basic land into their deck, this is just like instant speed sinkhole, which is scary.
Instant speed Vindicate.
I mean, the flexibility and the fact that it's instant is making it so great. Like, I think if it was sorcery, we wouldn't be too high on the card, but it would still be playable in a certain way. But the fact that it's instant and it gets to disrupt, like Anuraag mentioned, the Dark Depth combo and stuff, that's actually kind of wild. Like, technically, you can even stop Omniscience if you put something into play that puts a triggered ability on the stack. So, there's a lot of new angles of attack that, like, bug decks didn't have before.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, like, it's kind of like this. So Legacy is a brainstorm format. Like, the best decks just tend to play brainstorm. And I would say, like, the top 3 decks right now are probably Miracles, Grixis Control, and Shadow. And then, like, I think, if you look at this card against each of those 3 decks, it has its applications, particularly against Shadow if they don't play a basic. But my guess is, like, they can easily add a basic. But against a deck like Miracles, they can just fetch a basic land, or against Death and Taxes even. Like, Death and Taxes is a very mana-hungry deck, so that drawback is definitely real and pronounced. So that's, like, one big issue I see with the card. The other big issue I see with it is, like, the bug decks playing against the Grixis decks and Miracles. Like, one of the big problems of bug, which was Jace, but the other big problem is Snapcaster Reb. So you don't solve the other problem. Just like Phil was saying with Crusader and Batterskull, you solve sort of one of the problems, but again, there's still more reasons why Bug sees basically no play right now. And honestly, the only deck that plays Abrupt Decay that sees, like, some play right now, but still not much play, is 4-color Loam. So that's kind of where the card, like, might naturally fit and just be decent. I think maybe, like, you can build... It's possible to maybe build a deck to really focus on the card. Like, maybe you can build a Leon and Arbiter deck with Ghost Quarter and Astrophy or something crazy like that. But I honestly just don't really see a great home for the deck, given that, again, I still think Bug is going to be behind against, the top decks of the format.
This does give Bug an answer to some other cards that were sort of problematic before. Like, similarly with some of its removal only hitting certain threats, like Fatal Push and Abrupt Decay both missed Gurmag Angler. And this is another card that can answer that threat.
Yeah.
I don't know that this will be enough to like bug into like a tier 1 deck that can compete with everything else that's out there right now. But I think in like the first 2 to 3 weeks right after this is, hitting Magic Online, we're going to see a lot of like Bug Snapcaster decks while people try to make this work, or like Shardless Agent into that card because it's much less dead than Abrupt Decay in a lot of Game 1 scenarios.
And I want to talk about one thing. So the whole Snapcaster Assassin's Trophy interaction is kind of interesting because, I mean, so there's a very clear downside to playing this card, and it's that your opponent gets, a basic land, right? And it comes into play on tap and whatever. Bob mentioned that if you build a strategy around denying your opponent of, like resources, mana-wise, whatever. So you have like Ghost Quarters and stuff like that to just like press the advantage on their mana. Like, so they get 1 basic, cool, all right. Then you do it again with the Snapcaster Mage. They get a 2nd basic. Now you Ghost Quarter them, and suddenly that Ghost Quarter turns into a Strip Mine. So one thing I am sort of interested in seeing is just like what level the legacy format's going to like evolve in terms of how many basic lands are we going to start seeing? Like, I know, for example, Julian, you've been high on Green-White Maverick, right? And when I played against that deck in the GP, my opponent literally had 4 basic lands, and I, to the point where I was boarding out my back to basics in that matchup because I just didn't think it was good enough. And so, like, it's very, very clearly, like, apparent that if people want to beat this card, you just throw in a couple. Well, okay, first of all, I'm not even sure if just adding more basics, quote unquote, beats the card, right? Because, like, look at Modern, right? Path to Exile gives them a land, but it's still just a very, very good card in the format, right? So, I mean, maybe we look at more of the destroy target permanent and see like how much value that provides to the format. I know, Phil, you're mentioning Gurmag Angler being a really important card that, you know, bug decks typically could not answer, and we appreciate the card for that purpose.
I definitely am going to stream with an absolute crap pile of a deck that includes 4 Leonin Arbiters, 4 Aven Mind Sensors, 4 Path to Exile, 4 of this card, maybe a couple of Settle the Wreckages, and just see how much damage I can do if I go down that route. But I think it's definitely going to be too deep.
And here I am thinking that I should like add a user-submitted deck to your queue and pay you like $20 to play it. But if you're going to play it all by yourself, I want to see that.
Just going to do it anyways. Yeah, like I've tried brewing so many different decks with this card. Like the bug mid-range shell, maybe shardless, or like a bug loam shell. And it just like, I still don't see this deck like, you know, being favored against something even like Grixis control. Like Grixis colors give you access to Pyroblast, Kolaghan's Command, and Lightning Bolt, which I think is just better than Abrupt Decay, Trophy, and Leovold in the current metagame. I think that what the bug decks do better than like Grixis and Miracles is that they're kind of better against the Chalice decks because you have access to like Abrupt Decay and Goyf. But like the Chalice decks aren't the decks that people care about beating right now. It's more the blue decks. So I think it definitely has a place in the metagame, but I would be surprised if bug becomes tier 1. So I kind of like this card in non-blue decks a little bit more.
Exactly.
Because the non-blue decks, they don't have to compete with Snapcaster Reb. Like that's not really a thing that they necessarily care about. And so in non-blue decks, so in black, either, I don't know, black, green, white, maybe Jund or 4-color, or maybe there could be a straight black-green deck focused on Ghost Quarter. I don't know. Like I think there is something to be explored there. But again, like if you're not playing blue, you're generally not going to be the best deck in Legacy. Like I had a friend say like, hey, this would be amazing in Nick Fit because they actually struggle with answering a lot of lands. So if that's where we're at, then I'm not, you know, I would be surprised if this makes anything tier 1.
Let's be real, everything has a home in Nick Fit though, right?
Yeah, that's a meme by this point, right? Could be good in Nick Fit. Oh no, don't look at it. No, what I like about this card is the flexibility it provides. If you've been following my streams lately, I've played Abrupt Decay in the main deck from time to time, and you every once in a while run to a matchup where it's like completely dead. Like the best thing you get to hit is like a random creature that you don't even care about. But this thing, it actually answers Chase, and that's one, at least talking from the Elves perspective, that's a really big thing. Because Chase, playing against Chase decks, it's usually all about Chase. Because, like you guys know, Elves is really good at grinding and like making all those 1-for-1 trades. But once the opponent gets a recurring source of card advantage, that's where it goes downhill. Like whenever Miracles untaps with Chase against Elves, and this is a card that actually gives you a way to fight over that. And people say, yeah, it can be countered, but that's okay. Because when people tap out for Chase, they need to have Force of Will afterwards. And like Elves is throwing so much discard at these Chase decks, it's a fine spot. Like if they also happen to have like Chase plus Force Pitch after like 6 turns or something, that's okay. But overall, it's some insane flexibility. I just wish it exiled instead of destroying, because then we even had a way against Marat Lage. But I mean, you can still try to hit the combo if you have the time. So I'm really looking forward to just like trying out this card in the main deck and seeing where it goes. I agree with Bob that maybe there's like a dedicated black-green control, no, not even control, like I almost want to call it like a land destruction deck out there that plays Loam and Exploration, like much more dedicated on the land head plan than regular lands is. And it's probably like barely tier 2 unless like somebody comes along and breaks it in Magic Online. But overall, I'm really looking forward. Like, this is the kind of card even that would make me interested in splashing black in Maverick. Like, I've been known to not like that, but I can see doing it. Even though if it reduces the number of basics, I think that's actually the most important point. Like, how many basics are decks that are somewhat vulnerable to this card gonna run? Because if they get like 2 basics and have a way to make use of that mana, because there's also decks that like they are not very good at using their extra mana for extra stuff once it gets beyond a certain point. So if you have to use the card on the second turn, it's really bad, because like suddenly your opponent has like 4 mana on the third turn. That feels bad. But if it's like something more late game-ish, and that's where we're talking about Chase, then the difference between having like 7 or 8 mana isn't all that big. Especially like imagine you're a deck that puts pressure on the opponent's mana base through something like Wasteland, Daze, I don't know, then you're like providing incentives for your opponent to fetch their basics early on, and they don't really want to do that. That's something that happens to me with Maverick from time to time. And because like you go through your entire deck with Knight, and then you actually have to decide like, when do I sack away my basics, because it means I won't have access to them later on in the game. And it's like a weird tension there going on. And that's also something like, if you play something that attacks the mana of the opponent but also has a late game plan, that could be something the card could shine in. I'm just not sure like what that deck is gonna look like. Like basically it would be like a tempo deck that has a late game plan. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, I think like to kind of echo your point about, it has a lot of tension with this card and Wasteland, which is, you know, one of the best cards that, you know, most fair decks can play in Legacy. So either you want to like kind of run them out of basics, and if you do that, this card is absolutely incredible. But if you're not doing that and you're playing this with Wasteland, it like really neuters the effectiveness of your Wastelands. If you're just giving them a land. And like, as you sort of mentioned too, in the early turns, Abrupt Decay is just going to be way better because it's uncounterable and it answers everything this card answers. So it's more of a like late game card, unless you can like somehow use it with Arbiter or Mind Sensor or something, like the full potential, and have it be like a 4-of. But in most other decks, it would probably just be like, you know, a 2-of to supplement the Abrupt Decays to answer some of the problematic permanents, is kind of how I see this card first starting out. Like, I just don't think it really makes sense as a 4-of. Unless I like maybe just don't care how many lands they have at all. You play something like Shardless Bug and you're like, okay, I'm not going to mana deny you. I'm just going to let you do whatever you want and have my stuff be bigger. Like, that's another avenue of attack. But again, as I mentioned, all the bug decks tend to lose to the Snapcaster Rub decks. So I'm not so sure that's going to be great either.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give props to Wizards on this. Actually, this card has so much depth, and the more that I think about it, like the upside is that it's so powerful, but the downsides are too real. Like, I don't know, it's weird. I wonder, like, you know, from a Delver perspective, and Bob, this is just your area of expertise. I know like Bug Delver was one of your favorite decks. Does this card do anything? I mean, like, there's so much dyssynergy between this card and Daze that I don't know if I would ever expect to see a deck like Bug Delver play this card, especially since like I can't stress how powerful Can't Be Countered is.
Yeah, I mean, in most Delver decks, I think you could play 1 or 2, but it would be worse than Decay. So that's kind of how I feel about it. You can play it after you play, say you play like 3 Decay, one of these. That seems reasonable to me. But yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Yeah, because like in the cards that you get to kill with this card instead of Abrupt Decay, you don't really care about. Like, the other decks, they don't really care all that much about Chase. So is there any card that you always wanted to kill with Abrupt Decay in Delver but couldn't because it's like converted mana cost 4? Moat, I guess. Well, yeah, but even Moat.
Yeah, nobody
like,
really plays that.
Yeah, you can't even get beyond
Bug
that.
Delver did have a lot of issues with Jay, so it does help there. But again, it's just like there are other reasons why Bug is not great. Like Anuraag did mention, like maybe you could build your Bug decks to leverage, you know, non-blue card advantage. So for example, Hymn to Turok and Sylvan Library. And so that could be an angle where Bug could attack Miracles and Grixis. But I don't think those are as powerful as just like something simple like Reb and Snapcaster, which I could just keep going back to. But
yeah,
let's also not forget Kolaghan's Command. Like, Kolaghan's Command is also like a really, really powerful 2-for-1 and amazing with Snapcaster Mage, and Bug just doesn't have something like that.
I really think it's important for everyone to stop playing Kolaghan's Command and start playing Assassin's Trophy. That's the real take-home message from today, everyone. Get
Hashtag
it?
no bias.
Make Legacy great again. Actually, Legacy is kind of great right now. Do you guys feel the same? Like, do you enjoy it as much as I do?
I'm having a blast every time I sit down to play Magic, almost no matter what deck I've been playing.
Yeah, I would say it definitely has closed off a little since the first month post-ban. What are we? So it was early July, so it was July, August. July and August were really open. Following the GP and leading up to the GP, I think it's closed off somewhat as people have finally figured out which decks are the best. It's not Rug Delver. It's, you know, Grixis Control, Miracle, Shadow. Death and Taxes would be up there, except it faces a lot of hate. As well as not being great against Miracles or Grixis Control right now. Otherwise, I would typically put it up there. But I would kind of put it a step down now, given how the metagame has shifted.
Yeah, D&T crushes everything except Grixis Control, and the Miracles matchup is way closer than I want it to be. I'm still positive there, but I don't know that that will be true for the average DNT pilot at all.
Yeah, and I wonder, just on like another side note, like how this card might. So, what are the other like non-blue black-green decks that exist that might be able to leverage this card? So there's like 4-color Loam. There's definitely Elves. There's also Jund. That's a deck that I haven't seen or heard of in forever.
Maverick, the Green Splash Pox.
Yeah, maybe like some sort of dark bant list could splash for this. This does increase the value of something like True Name Nemesis, where if people do start to play this card, then you still have something that just like kind of beats them.
Yeah, so are you going to see even more True Name Nemesis?
I hope not.
No.
I wonder if the Wizards is going to come up with a card that actually finally gets to interact with True Name Nemesis in like a different way. Like they've been known to like introduce mechanics.
What's True Name? It's just like there's like edicts, -1 effects, and Council Judgment. Like Council Judgment was the way they were going to do it. Basically, we're going to vote it off the island.
Democracy. Yeah, I don't know. So that's another interesting point to like observe. Is like the periphery, right? So if people start playing Assassin's Trophy, how does the meta evolve? What are other cards we expect to see, and like where does that take us? So like this is sort of like the meta like 10 years into the future, right? So from my perspective, playing Miracles, I'm really petrified of seeing more cards like Sylvan Library and Hymn to Torok. I'm also scared of seeing more cards like Choke. That's another big one that I think non-blue decks can leverage. And then, like you guys mentioned, True Name Nemesis is another card that's just immune to this and also leverages the ramp effect off of it nicely. Because one thing that I've noticed is that like all these like new age Delver decks and like all these like mid-range decks, I mean, like you tap out on turn 3 for True Name Nemesis, and that part of me says that's like it's a powerful effect, but also then to a degree, if there's not like a lot of other stuff going on in the background, it's just like not as powerful. And maybe I'm over exaggerating or underestimating the power of True Name Nemesis because I 1 mana sweeper or whatever. But it's just like there's like a number of other effects that I think like baggage that this card brings with it, right? So like I actually wonder if this card actually pops off and just does become really good. The format itself might slow down, which means that we might start seeing a lot more like 2, 3, 4 mana spells as opposed to 0, 1, 2 mana spells, which is kind of weird when you think about like Legacy. But though, like the whole Path to Exile effect is pretty crazy. I mean, it's definitely like a unique thing that we haven't seen in Legacy fully explored.
Yeah, I wonder if the card is gonna make such a big impact, because I can also see it like some decks playing it like as a 2-off in the main deck maybe, and then adding some more in the sideboard. Like you mentioned that the format might like somewhat slow down because people have access to a little more mana, which could be an effect if people like go the way of I'm just gonna somewhat ignore the card and just add a couple more basics and not like change my deck building in any really meaningful way. And I would be actually super interested in seeing that happen. Like the last time we saw a real big slowdown in the format was when Mental Misstep was legal. And when Mental Misstep was legal, like you had decks like Anuraag, which was like, for you guys who don't know it yet, or for our listeners, it's like a ruck deck that played the mid-range game and like had Natural Order and 7 libraries and played 4 Vendilion clicks, because the Mental Misstep, as miserable as like a card as it was, it slowed down the format, so we got to do stuff like that. Also like stuff like Deed Still, where you played like 4 Deeds in Mishra's Factories and win conditions. That was, I think now we already had Snapcaster Mage at that point. So to me, like cards like Snapcaster Mage, Griselbrand, and sometimes stuff like this that we now saw in the metagame, the S Trophy, they are somewhat transformational, and they are like hallmarks of what a new Legacy looks like. And I wonder whether we're like on the brink of that. And I'm really like excited to actually see where this goes, especially since I'm playing a deck that can actually utilize this card, and I'm definitely gonna try it out as a 2-off. I'm just not convinced that we're actually gonna see it like as an actual 4-off, because, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're gonna look back at this episode and we're gonna be like, Julian, people would play 8 of those cards if it was possible, because it's still 2 mana instant speed Vindicate. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the big question moving forward, and maybe a good place to end on is that we've got a cool, very powerful card, but finding the right home for it and finding the right numbers for this card might be tricky. And that's kind of one of the big questions, looking forward into our new metagame here is how big of an impact does this make? And how much are you willing to change your deck to either fit this in or play around it?
Yeah, I think my takeaway from this card is that non-blue decks are probably going to benefit a lot from this more than the blue decks are, which is something I'm actually very happy about. Like we looked at the Grand Prix results from a week and a half ago or whatever, and Brainstorm showed up. And that's personally I am a bigger fan of formats where everybody gets to play what they want, and that everything is like there's no big gap. So hopefully this card does has an impact in making the non-blue decks that we haven't seen before just come out. Everybody bring your bayous and whatnot and battle again. We'll see where it goes.
When is it actually going to be legal, the card? When is it going to come out?
Late September, so probably, early October, something like that, yeah.
Soonish. So if it's going to be on Magic Online, I'm pretty sure we're going to run it in the Legacy Premier League, so I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah, me too.
Is anyone of us still in the league? No, we are lost.
Yeah,
we're all out.
all losers.
That's why we're doing the pregame show.
Anuraag wasn't even invited, so
Well, he was invited, but he turned it down in order to help us. So all the more power.
No, we decided he wasn't good enough.
Wow, yikes!
Well,
I graciously donated my spot to a certain Wilson Hunter. I mean, what?
But we actually had one late entry into the league, and I'm not going to say who it was, but well, he's still playing, and there's a chance that he's going to take down the entire league. So yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, and since this is going up, we are recording this on Tuesday, but everybody else is getting ready for the first match now, and I'm really looking forward to that because I already saw what a couple of the people are playing, and there is some spice there. Especially for some of the players, there are stacks that you wouldn't really expect out of them. So I wonder if their opponents are going to be caught off guard because there's a very real chance.
I'm going to throw this one back at you. If you actually know your player bios and Legacy way, way back when, nothing should really come as a surprise, but I don't want to say more than that because the games that you guys are going to watch after this they're going to be intense.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
So yeah, anything else you guys want to add before we close this one out?
I'm all good.
You're all good?
Seems like this card will make a minor impact. I think people will eventually converge on. This is my prediction. That people will eventually converge that the card is probably not good enough. 2 mana, heavy mana requirements, and then the basic land downside is just easy to beat. So we'll see a lot of it, and then we won't see any of it.
What I like is that it's a rare, so it's not like a mythic, so people can actually get it and try it out in paper.
Still $30 already. So.
Oh, already? Oh man, something we didn't touch on.
I think it's gonna go down.
I hope so. So something we didn't touch on.
It's hard for a rare to be $30 when there's shock lands and other things in the set that seem to be pretty powerful. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Julian.
No, sure. This card is going to be huge in Modern. I think it's going to be really huge in Modern. People already alluded to it on Twitter, destroying Tron lands and stuff, and destroying Chase, which was super hard to do without Pyroblast and stuff. I think this card can be format defining for Modern. Modern already doesn't care about all these ramp effects of Path and Astrophy. So wow, I'm really wondering what's going to come out of that.
I'm really looking forward to the coverage where everyone wants to say Astrophy and can't say Astrophy because it's official WotC coverage.
People are probably going to default to just calling it Trophy or something. So anyway, thanks a lot for tuning in. Stay tuned. Mike is going to set up the matches, and I think they will be right about to start. So watch our awesome intro. Thanks a lot for watching this with us. Guys, thanks for coming on tonight and bearing with all the technical difficulties we had. And see you again anytime soon. So, bye-bye.